Welcome to Lunacy. Quick acknowledgement before we get started. There are parts of this podcast which may make you slightly uncomfortable. That's where the juice is. I want to acknowledge you for listening. Growth, it seems, is always challenging, and also, fortunately, always rewarding. Thank God. Also, there is some discussion of reincarnation and the idea that we chose to be here on this planet before we got here. You may or may not think that way, and ultimately, who knows where the truth lies. Regardless of where you stand, I encourage you to try these ideas on for the sake of the thought experiment. Also discussed is an actual case of euthanasia, just so you know. Happy listening, and much love.
I am Jeff Ado. This is Lunacy, where we discern the sacred from the insane and admit that whether we like it or not, we are all profoundly affected by the cycles of the moon. How? My guest today is Karrel, a spiritual teacher, very dear friend of mine, fellow philosopher, and experimenter into life and what it means and why we're here. Somebody who practices a lot of different religious ideas and tenets, and is an avid seeker, right?
I would say.
Yeah. And is a really good friend and brother of mine. So thank you for coming to the program, Kai.
Thank you for bringing me back.
Yeah.
My second appearance.
Round 2, ladies and gentlemen,
Yeah.
Kai Karrel.
I thought you were going to say a fellow lunatic. Definitely.
Oh, yeah.
Definitely.
That is for sure. You're definitely a fellow lunatic.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think everybody could attest to that. Everyone who knows
I
you.
strive for my lunacy.
Yeah, thank you for being so friggin' weird. You know what I mean?
I do my best.
So today we're here to talk about All Will Sing, which is my latest music release and music video release. I'm really excited about it. Worked super hard on this song. It's been a long time coming, and now it's out there, and I'm really stoked about it. So first things first, we're going to listen to it. If you're listening to this, you can also watch the video. It'll be posted in this podcast on my YouTube channel. So if you'd like to do that, go for it.
If I were to say to you, all is not at all what it seems, would you laugh at me and turn your head away? Or would you look long and hard, ask yourself what it means that truth can bend and break and go astray? Knowing there's nothing to know is a terrifying thing. The light in the darkness, the gold in the hotness, all will sing. Knowing there's nothing to know is a gratifying thing. The lovers, the haters, the meek, the invaders, all will sing. If I say what you seek can't be found looking out, do you shake your head and point across the way? Or do you smile, say to me, what I seek I find within, kiss my head, turn and fly away? Knowing there's nothing to know is a terrifying thing. The light in the darkness, the cold in the hotness, all will sing. Knowing there's nothing to know is a gratifying thing. The lovers, the in a blink? Do you scream and cry and beg for what is lost? Or do you shrug, take a bow, thank the world for what it gave, spread your wings and kindly pay the cost? Knowing there's nothing to know is a terrifying thing. The light in the darkness, the gold in the hotness. All will sing. Knowing there's nothing to know is a gratifying thing. The lovers, the haters, the meek, the invaders. All will If I were to say to you, all is not at all what it seems, would you laugh at me and turn your head away?
Incredible.
Thank you. I really feel good about it. It's it's really heartwarming to hear it, honestly. It's funny, I don't really let myself celebrate myself because we don't do that in our culture. But
We should.
we should. Like, I really feel like I worked really hard. I'm really proud of the musicians and Brad Gordon, the producer, is so amazing, and the mixer, my friend Barney. Like, it's it's really come a long way, and myself, quite frankly, for like putting as much love and heart as I have into it. You know, it's not an easy thing to birth a baby like that, and you know, obviously it's up to anybody who listens to it how they feel about it, but to me it's great. You know, I was really looking for, like, I just want to make something great. When I hear this in 30 years, I'm gonna be like, man, that's a good song, good job, you know.
You know, it's so true what you're saying, though, that in our culture we are so accustomed not to appreciate what we do. And why? And on the opposite, how much effort do we put into unappreciating things in ourselves, and this duality that the song also speaks to about celebrate. This is a moment to celebrate. It came out so beautiful and it's touching. Like, for someone listening to it, your heart and all the hard work, you should definitely appreciate.
Thank you. Yay. Good job, Jeff.
Good job.
Way to go, buddy. You got one. You did a good one. All right. Stop beating yourself up so much about other things. You know, it's a waste of time.
Exactly.
So first of all, thank you. I really appreciate that. And you know, I wanted to talk to you about this because it's a really deep subject matter. The purpose of the song. It's so funny. Like, most musicians don't go into depth about why they wrote the song, whereas I'm like all about it. I want to talk about the philosophy of what went into the meat and potatoes of All Will Sing. So I don't really want to talk about exactly what happened, but something really tragic. And it was just, I was totally blindsided by the event that occurred. You know, everybody survived, so that's great. But it was not, you know, it's a forever kind of a scarring thing. And I really feel also that, like, a lot of times things happen and you don't know where they came from, you know? And so it started there. It started in this space of like, wow, this is a crazy event that happened and it's really sad and tragic, and like, seems like some otherworldly things are happening, which is something else we don't really talk about. And so I wanted to write a song about that, and also about, you know, looking deeper at it, looking deeper at tragedy, at loss and joy and happiness, into the unity, the oneness of those things, the duality. Where does the duality meet so that it becomes one? Where do the two circles meet? Like that circle in Zen, the
Yin yang.
yeah.
Mm-hmm. There is a line that I really love in the song that says that not knowing is a terrifying thing. And in a way, we live life as if we know, but we don't know anything.
Mm-hmm.
Tomorrow I can walk and a piano falls down on me and that's over. So there is an undercurrent of fear of death that we live with. And we don't deal with it. Some do with anxiety or like, oh my God, I'm going to die. But most of us completely ignore this part. So in a way, you later said cold and the hot and the cold and the hot, light and the dark.
In the darkness, the cold and the hotness.
So there is this place of us that is saying, oh, I want just the cozy and not the cold. I just want the light. I don't want the dark. Mm-hmm. I don't want death. I only want to have life. And I rather not know. But it's not really, you know you're going to die. And you know that you see people around you die in not even tragic ways. You know that it is a part of life. But this choice to not know, to ignore, in a way, you feel, oh, this is a little comforting that I don't think about it. However, this unthinking or ignoring is taking the volume of life and kind of turning it down. Mm-hmm. And for you to really appreciate life, you need to acknowledge death in every moment. Mm-hmm. Because every moment we're dying, our cells are decaying, everything is in a process of decay. So in a way, living is a process of dying. Yeah. Right? You were born and you're not born to live. You are literally, from the first moment, your timer goes and you're now in a process of dying. Now, on one hand, if I sit here and obsess about the fact that I'm going to die at the end of the story, I'm not going to live. Mm-hmm. So these two polar experiences, birth, death, and for some rebirth, but at least birth and death, allow each other to be more meaningful.
Yeah.
Imagine that you'd live forever. Let's say in a gazillion years from now, there's not a single experience of life that you've not had. Mm-hmm. You dated everyone. God. You had children.
What a nightmare.
You know how to learn all musical instruments. A gazillion years, right? You will do anything and everything.
Yeah.
So eventually you'll get to a point where absolute boredom. Absolute, like there's, like, what else? What else can I do? I created, I sang, I cried, I've done it all. And so the process of life, it is a genius expression of allowing you to have meaning. That, okay, even if you do believe in reincarnation, whatever, but you are living one life at a time. And in that life, you get to choose. Okay, this lifetime guitar, next lifetime piano, dating this person, next time something else. No children now, maybe children later. All of these experiences allow you to go through a process of empowered choice.
Right.
So the first, you're saying not knowing is a terrifying thing.
Knowing there's nothing to know is a terrifying
Knowing
thing.
that there's nothing to know, meaning that all I know is that I don't know.
Yes, and I accept that I don't know. Knowing there's nothing to know is like saying, okay, it's like an expression of complete and total humility. Because I know that there's nothing to know. And even something that I do know, it's going to be transforming and changing as we go along. We thought that everything revolved around the earth, and now we know, well, that's not the case.
Or that the earth was a turtle.
Or that the earth was a turtle.
Which might be
that might
proven.
actually be accurate.
Yeah,
You know what I mean? I'm still waiting for it to poke its head out
absolutely.
and bite me in the ass. I think
that might still happen. But that first part is saying that to know that you don't know is terrifying because of everything that we said, because of the fear that comes with feeling small. Mm-hmm. It's humbling.
Yeah.
And you're feeling small. Like, I am just a drop in the ocean.
Exactly.
But then you sing this again and you change it to a...
Knowing there's nothing to know is a gratifying thing.
So what happened? How did it flip? It's flipped because you actually start to realize that not knowing is an assistance to you. Mm-hmm. That it allows you to, like I said earlier, to actually be in the process of life, to enjoy the experience. So once again, imagine that you knew everything, that if you already knew what's going to happen in your life and when things are going to happen, who you're going to marry, all of this is from day one, you already knew. Again, you'll be in absolute boredom. It's like, okay, I'll meet my wife at age this and this. So what am I doing until then? And it'll be kind of meaningless. So I'll give you an example. You and I decide to go to a movie. I've seen this movie already 16 times. It is absolutely new for you.
Mm-hmm.
Do we have the same or different experience? Completely drastically different, right?
Totally different.
Now, if
you're bored,
I'm completely
not.
bored.
Or you might love the movie so much that you're just like, this is so amazing.
Yeah, but even then,
like if it was Star Wars.
What happens to us when
the original?
The
By the
original,
way,
absolutely,
not the-
absolutely.
whatever
But I would
you know.
go to Star Trek. But anyway, what happens to us when we go to someone who knows this movie by heart for 16 times? What do they enjoy? That they memorize the lines. They know what happens. It's a different kind of joy and experience, right? They're kind of playing with it and it's becoming more artistic or expressive for them.
Yeah.
However, you would not want to go to a movie that's new for you with someone that's just enjoying the spoiler effect of it, that they enjoy the knowing. So imagine that we're going to, let's say, movie Big with, what's his name?
Tom Hanks.
And you've never seen it. I've seen it. And throughout the whole movie, I'm kind of quoting him and I'm telling you what's going to happen next. Yeah, but wait until the Dr. Pepper scene. I'm like, hey, you're ruining it for me, right?
Yeah.
You enjoy the unknownness of this experience. It is gratifying for you.
Yeah.
You enjoy the fact, I don't know what's going to happen.
Mm-hmm.
When we go into a relationship in the beginning, why do we have this, what we call honeymoon phase? All that it is the gratification of the unknown. Because you meet a person, you don't know what kind of spaghetti they like. How do they brush their teeth? What sounds they make in certain situations? It's all, how do they look naked? All these things are completely unknown to you.
Especially how they look naked.
Especially while they're eating their spaghetti.
And then we rush to that point. So then
Right.
it's gone, unfortunately.
But the point is
Don't
that
rush.
that period of time is absolutely gratifying because of one reason: it is unknown to you.
Mm-hmm.
When does the relationship start to go downhill? Is when it becomes more and more known. More, I know her, I know how she acts, I know. So if in the beginning you're kind of checking checkboxes, wow, amazing, wow, I didn't know this. Later, you're not even asking the questions. Instead of asking the question, you're saying, well, I already know how you're going to be, how you're going to behave, right? Mm-hmm. Same thing with life. You see the lack of plasticity in not maybe also physical as the body grows old, but we're kind of getting more and more set in our ways, which is another way of saying, I know how things are.
Yeah.
Right.
And then that, as you say, spoils it. I mean, so often in relationships, you know, we have our wounding from prior relationships. They cheated on me, or they did this, or they weren't listening. And so then, you know, we find somebody new and we're like, oh, this is great and it's beautiful. And I can't believe how lucky I am. And then eventually that same listening that we had of that person, you know, just reiterates itself or recreates itself, because we're thinking, well, she's just going to be just like, you know, Mona was back in the day. And then all the problems that I have with Mona are now with, you know, Janice. And it's surprising to me, but it's also because of the fact that I'm assuming that I know how it's going to go. In fact, in a very large way, she has no other choice than to act like Mona did, because that's the way that I'm listening to her.
Like you're going to try, and this is all subconscious, to prove that she's Mona.
Right.
So every time that she makes a somewhat Mona-esque move, you're already on top of that. And hey, you see, that's a Mona move. I know you're going to hurt me next. And again, this is all subconscious. This happens as automatics, right? And again, all you're doing is reinforcing the known. Yeah. So it's
and
not
that dynamic that you know. And by the way, she already maybe has that dynamic with somebody that she was before, which is why you guys secretly chose each other. Or she has no idea about all that shit, but she finds herself acting in this weird way that she's never acted before, because that's the way that you're listening to her. Mm-hmm. You're calling that from her so that you can continue to survive the notions, ideas that you're holding on to that you have to know, versus just letting those notions go and knowing there's nothing to know.
And there's an interesting thing, because for the mind, this is literally neurochemistry.
Yeah.
There is gratification in the re-experiencing of the known.
Yeah.
That's like addiction, right? With a substance, like what you know what's going to do. You have done this 1,000 times. You know exactly what's going to happen.
Yeah.
But there is chemical gratification.
Uh-huh.
So again, this is another example where that known is gratifying, but this sense we're talking about negative gratification in a sense of it is not good for you. What is required for you is actually to stay open in the terrifying of the unknown.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, which is a real challenge, which is what the song is about. Like, how do I just stand in the middle of the river as the waves are rushing by? That's exactly right. You know, another thing about the neurochemistry, a fact that just always just comes back to me so often is neuropeptides. You know, this whole idea, they go into it in What the Bleep Do We Know? And a lot of those authors also talk about that whole phenomenon where if we experience something traumatic, something sad, and we're, really upset about it, then we create all these neuropeptides, these actual cells in our brain that are receptors for that emotion.
Uh-huh.
Well, those little neuropeptides are actually also canals in our actual brain. And those little neuropeptides that are accepting all this shame and guilt and fear and loathing, etc., and there's something wrong here, they're alive now. And so they need to continue to live. So they need for me to experience that same kind of shit so that I can feel so fucking terrible again. Otherwise, they will die, which is crazy. So then I keep choosing events and people over and over again that are going to satisfy that need to have that terrible event happen, to re-trigger that trauma because I never dealt with it in the first place.
Mm-hmm. It never healed. And also, sadly, it requires it in higher and higher dosages. So again, like addiction, in the beginning, they maybe one cigarette, but then that's not enough, and then you need to do more, So that explains to us and then it is a natural phenomenon of being human, that the need to re-examine, re-experience challenging events.
Mm-hmm.
But also that requires, again, to stay in order to walk away from this, is the willingness to stand in the terrifying. Wow, It's scary to not know.
Mm-hmm.
It is scary to feel small.
Yeah.
That's one of the reasons Ellen Watts tells us why we call it falling in love. Because it's a fall, it's a free fall. You feel, I'm losing my state of self. In order to protect ourselves, we start putting things in boxes. Okay, I know. It's not as scary. It's not as unknown. I don't know if they're going to reject me. Let me make all the promises. I leave early. I leave before. Or I'm going to start to create a game where I will hurt the least and thinking that I will gain the most, but it doesn't work like that.
Mm-hmm.
Without that fear of the unknown and the terror in a way for the ego. It is terror to fall apart. Without that, the volume of enjoying life goes down also.
Yeah.
So I can't just say, I will just not feel the pain of, let's say, rejection in a relationship. But if I'm lowering that so that will not hurt me, I will be less terrified. I will also be less moved by a song.
Mm-hmm.
I will less be inspired by a tree or by the sunset. So we need to understand that life is dual. You can turn off the darkness, that will turn off the light.
Yeah.
You can only be focused on the light because without the darkness, there's no balance.
Right, exactly. I think it's Karrel talks about like the experience of my joy is inversely proportionate to the depth of my sorrow. He doesn't say it quite that way, but that's accurate. If we allow ourselves to be vulnerable and experience the joy so fully, we know that we're also going to experience the sadness so fully. The difference is allowing that sadness to go, which I think is the thing that's really missing for most of us. And we never really received any training or education about, unless we grew up in, I don't know, some culture where that was like really talked about and discussed and that there were processes put in place. That's part of the thing, is that we don't know how to process the grief, the tragedy. The tragedy that inspired this song is a really sad thing that happened. But if I allow myself to fully embrace that, see it, understand what happened on some level and accept it, cry about it, emote about it, and then let it go, then I'm able to see the beauty of the teaching that is behind it, and I'm able to just experience life more fully. I think there's such a there is a fallacy that somehow we can escape the sadness, that we can escape suffering and pain, and we can't. We're going to feel it no matter what, no matter how much we shield ourselves, as you say, with knowing what we know and believing what we believe. No matter how much we shield ourselves, we're still going to die, and we're still going to have something extremely terrible happen or sad happen at some point. It's really like freedom and liberation, and truly living is just in the acceptance. Okay, you know what? I know that something's going to come down the pike, and I don't know what it is, but I'm just going to be open as I can, and accept whatever happens. There's something so beautiful in going back to that notion, just standing in the river and letting it come, letting it wash over me, no matter what it brings. And also knowing that, first of all, there's nothing to know, that it will be terrifying, that it will also be gratifying, that it will come full circle, that I will see the other side of this. And because I saw the dark side, I'm able to really embrace the light, which we don't usually allow ourselves to do.
And let me kind of bring it to also a practical place where, as a funny example, I'm coming back to you saying, "Oh, I don't appreciate myself for this song." Because as little as that,
yeah,
we are, like you're saying, we're living in a culture that is not celebratory towards processing pain. Experiencing, yes, we are very celebratory of sharing and expressing our pain, but not really healing, not really looking at it, not really talking about it, not really standing in our weakness. We complain a lot, we share about the problems, but we're not really taking ownership on them and really going deep into them. Beautiful saying in the Jewish faith is, "Don't shorten your winters." I love saying this.
Yeah.
It is now winter. It is now time for me to feel the pain, the grief, the terror, the whatever it is, and not shorten my winter so it's summer already and I'm feeling happy, but really accept it. But also don't shorten your summers, right? And as you can see, it is such a engraved and
ingrained. Yeah, both of those things.
Human experience at this time where we're at. Our societies are not built to celebrate growth and wholeness.
Yeah.
That will lead to what? So this running away from fear, running away from unknownness, running away from death, will lead to us becoming more and more numb. And if you look around, that's kind of what's happening.
Totally.
Right? And then I need to be on my phone all day long, or I need to keep numbing myself, because I'm so afraid of feeling any kind of discomfort.
Yeah.
I do a lot of work with plant medicine and indigenous people.
You?
I do.
Really?
Yeah.
Come on. Get out of town.
One of the things that you'll find, which is the most inspiring for me when you go to the jungle, is that it's extremely uncomfortable. And you're confronted as someone who doesn't live in the jungle daily.
Yeah.
With, wow, there are mosquitoes and there's waters that are not clean and so many different things. And a lot of the different medicines that they offer you are not comfortable. They burn your eyes and there's so many different things. And
not literally burn your eyes, but they feel like they burn your eyes.
Yeah, they're very intense. Sananga.
Yeah.
But what is the teaching here is how we as people who are mostly unexposed to discomfort. Now, obviously, every person, for one person, comfort is a 5-star 4-season hotel in the Bahamas. And like under this is uncomfortable, right?
Yeah.
And someone else that you can see in many of these places that I visited, not everyone has shoes. Not everyone has clean waters. However, most of these people have so much happiness.
Yeah.
And so much joy. And if they have like a small, like a toy car or something, they're so happy with it. And on the flip to that, you see people that have 50 cars and they're not happy because they don't have the latest one and the greatest one, and they're still not happy.
And they equate that with winning or something, or they equate that with happiness.
Value,
it's
right?
Not.
Worth, value. So the point again is that we are so afraid of discomfort, which I'm relating to the first line of the song. Not knowing that
there's nothing to know
is a terrifying thing. But is it really?
Mm-hmm.
Is standing in discomfort and fear, is it so terrifying? It is terrifying and it is gratifying.
Exactly.
What makes it gratifying or terrifying? Your approach, and how you choose to live your life, how you're choosing to look. And like you said, it doesn't mean that you need to be completely focused on, I'm about to die. But accepting that death is a part of your life will equip you with the ability and possibility to be ready if your parent will die in a certain moment. Your children might be in a car accident. These things are guaranteed. There is no way for you as a human being to avoid the calamity that is prescribed for you as a human. So you know what, if you think about it, everything that's happening, all these calamities, all these horrible things, if you could talk to God, it's like, why did you make it like this? And the answer will be, but it's absolutely perfect. It is made on purpose in this exact specific way. This is exactly how it's supposed to be. So you will learn about yourself and you will choose an empowering meaning to pain, to grief, and all the different spiritual traditions of the world. You see, for example, the Egyptian Book of the Dead, Tibetan Book of the Dead. In Peru, there's a lot of work around death. Plant medicines that are a lot about rebirth and resurrection and dying, because this is the point. It's like, stop avoiding the places that are uncomfortable and start to open to them and understand you cannot accept for the rest of your life. It's still going to happen. You can bypass them spiritually or not spiritually. You can completely ignore, push them away. Are they going to not happen because you put your hand in the sand? No. So instead, learning to train ourselves from as little as accepting. I just did an amazing song. Because, like you said earlier, not accepting the song means that you won't be able to accept your darkness in the same way also. Finding the equilibrium. If I'm running away from light, I'm running away from darkness. If I'm running away from darkness, I'm running away from light.
That's beautiful. Yeah, the whole idea of continuous death in Zen, where it's like, okay, well, I'm just going to meditate on, if I were to die today, I'm going to die right now. What are the things that are incomplete in my life? And then all of a sudden you're just like, whoa, wait a minute. You start really listening to your higher self, right? Or your Ori, right? And then you start thinking, oh, there's all these things that I need to complete in my life so that I have integrity, so that I don't feel lacking, so that I'm healed and whole. And those things are the things that we're called to do, which is such a powerful, powerful practice, whether it's in Zen or Tibet or wherever else, that you're focused on that kind of thing, because then we're able to bring wholeness and completion to our lives and celebrate who we are now, as opposed to ignoring things so much and pretending like it's not gonna get me. And when I'm sad, what do? I go to the bar and I have a couple of drinks, which that never works. I mean, sorry to say, I wish it did, quite frankly. I wish you could just go drink your sorrows away, but that's never the way the equation happens. It always makes them worse, at least in my experience. And I think that's part of you have to at least get to a point where you're just like allowing yourself to really fully grieve whatever it is that is saddening you, whatever it is that you need to grieve so that you can heal, and then have acceptance of yourself and who you are, despite the fact that you got lambasted.
So what is the first step? The first step would be to identify, or no, I would say even before that. The first step would be the acknowledgement that I am numbing parts of myself in my life. Whether it is by alcohol or by scrolling on your phone for hours,
working,
scrolling, or workaholicism, or whatever it is.
Anything in excess like that.
So not saying just turn it off completely and say, okay, I'm not doing this anymore, because that will not heal it. It will come back. That's shortening your winter.
Yeah.
But you would like to get to a place where there's a tier, whether it's physical or not, of wow, I am disconnected from myself.
Yeah.
And I needed to protect myself by these type of things that supposedly make me feel better.
Mm-hmm.
They do for a second, for a minute, for an hour, for
Yeah.
a day.
They do, for
But
very brief.
Then the funny thing is, when you're saying that I'm feeling better, actually, I'll give honor to my grandfather because that's his story. So he used to say that it's kind of joke that the older you get, you choose to have smaller shoes. And I'm like, but why? Like, doesn't make sense. He says, because you get to a point that your life is so annoying and hard that the greatest joy that you have is when you take off your shoes and you feel so good about your feet. So the same thing, this is what we're doing with the scrolling and the alcohol and all this. Numbing, you say, oh, I'm feeling better because I'm scrolling or whatever. You're not feeling better. You're just not feeling the pain that exists.
Yeah.
So it's not that I'm feeling good, I'm feeling not bad.
Right.
It's very two different things. Feeling not bad, not challenged, not and feeling good, right? Feeling good is a state, so good, also the word good is a little challenging, but the opposite of numbing yourself is being open and receptive, is being alive. Life brings risk. Life brings the terrifying part that we spoke about earlier. Life is unknown. So again, it is a journey of first step, acknowledgement. Yes, I'm numbing in all these kind of ways. That acknowledgement on its own will start the journey.
Yeah.
Because the first, there's a whole concept in theosophy around the gates to awakening. And the first gate is defense. So the first part of me that's not wanting to wake up is the part that says, I don't even look at my numbing. I'm numbing myself to see that I'm numbing.
Yeah.
Someone scrolling on their phone for 9 hours with some kind of excuse. I do this for work. I need to do whatever. But yeah, but there's life happening out there. There's a funny clip with what's his name, Louis C.K., where he says people are at the like New Year's event, you know, when the ball falls and the New Year's at 12 o'clock, you know, the ball falls and everyone's and kissing and all that. He says there's acrobats in the air and so much going on, and everyone's looking at it through their phone, you know, disconnected, the plastic thing that disconnects. So it's not my rant against technology. I love technology, but looking for the places that how am I using technology or a relationship or substances or whatever it is that I'm doing in order to numb myself and feel that more disconnected. Acknowledge. Then as you acknowledge it, you'll see that it will become harder and harder to do these things without feeling I'm wasting my life. Wow, I'm actually not happy. I'm maybe not sad because I'm occupied, because my mind is doing something else, but I'm not happy. And then will begin your spiritual journey, which will be the journey of, and how do I find happiness? How do I start to, and it will start with discomfort.
Yeah.
There has to be some situation of facing lost time, painful relationships, the inability to express our truth, so many different things that if I'm willing to face the uncomfortable, so beautiful. Viktor Frankl has a book called
Man's Search for Meaning.
Man's Search for Meaning. And there's a line in this book says something like, you need to understand that without the ability to face discomfort, you won't be able to find meaning.
Right.
Because it is, again, like I said earlier, discomfort is prescribed for you as you chose this planet as your destination for this life.
Yeah.
So, planet Earth comes with, like, in how to say in the small print, comes with discomfort, death, and sickness. Like,
so lots of weird rashes and toxic relationships.
So imagine that
you
you take that pill and you're like, Doesn't matter what's written in them. Just see what happens. And you're seeing what happens. Like you came to this planet. It involves all of these uncomfortable things. So is it helping you to completely pretend that they don't exist? No. And that's the journey.
Yeah. And that's
turning the terrifying into gratifying. And what gratifies just my ego to the willingness to be terrified a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely.
What happens to many people that get a sudden heart attack or something like this? Suddenly they're facing death. Like, okay, you smoked and this and this and this, whatever you did, alcohol and parties, whatever, and suddenly you get a heart attack. Suddenly these people, oh my God, I still want to go to Italy. I still want to paint. I still want to tell my wife how much I love her. Suddenly there's a wake-up call. Mm-hmm. But what just happened? The mask of ignoring the reality was taken off for a minute, a day, a week, whatever. Mm-hmm. And it's a terrifying thing. Oh my God, I'm losing my life. Like, this is it. I could have died last week.
Yeah.
And what happens? From terrifying, gratifying, thank you. Oh my God, I'm so appreciative. My wife is amazing. Everything. What happened? Just a week before, all these things were boring for us and not important, and we were not grateful for. Mm-hmm. So again, death is a gift in that sense. Not saying we aspire to die. I'm saying we aspire to live with so much gratitude that every moment that we get to live might be our last. And if we live in that way, it will be the flip of meaning from terrifying to gratifying, gratifying to terrifying.
Yeah, and it's so beautiful to see. I mean, we had a good friend of my wife just passed away, and he was going through like organ failure and all kinds of just terrible, rotten things that you don't want to have happen. And his wife was watching, and he elected to do the euthanasia. He euthanized himself. They give you a shot. It's legal in New Mexico. And I'm not, recommending this or condoning it or whatever, but for him, it was what he saw as the answer. And he knew it was only a matter of weeks anyway. And he wanted to end the suffering for he and his wife. And he was at peace. We talked to him. I talked to him a couple of days before he died. Christine talked to him the morning that he died, and he was at peace. And he bravely went into that world. He drank the stuff like you would have shot. Most people sip it. He drank it. He knew that was what his destiny was. And so, again, obviously, neither of us, no one knows what the result of that is. But I can certainly there's a result in terms of how the living people around him, how my wife and I and all the people who loved him, his family, accept that and see what he's doing and get why he's doing it. And it's also to help them. It's such a more beautiful way and honorable way to die with your eyes open. And I think that's also part of the challenge. And the other thing that I wanted to mention that came up while you were talking is like this terrifying thing, this hunting, looking for discomfort. I've interviewed my friend Sterling Hawkins a couple of times about hunting discomfort and going at life no matter what style. Where you're just you have your commitment, you're gonna go after it no matter what. That's what you're gonna do. Things are gonna throw you off track. You're just gonna keep going, like with the mind. For me, making sure that the mind didn't open in my neighborhood. That was a no matter what. I'm gonna go after it.
It happened.
And it happened. It was me and the community, but I was part of it. And by the way, now I feel ownership to that community and that space and that place and this planet because I defended her against something that would have been really tragic.
She shook in agreement.
She shook. Yeah, I don't know if I told that part of the story, but for people who've been paying attention to the podcast, all right, this is fucking mine, all right, that they wanted to reopen in Grass Valley, and it would have really just destroyed the environment. And we fought hard against it. I wrote a song and did a music video and performed that song at the supervisors meeting twice and rallied people together. And so did a lot of other people. And the community really fought hard with a lot of people way smarter than me speaking out against it. And when the supervisors made their choice to say no to the mine and no to the environmental impact report, at the same time, the earth quaked. And it quaked along the same fault line that this mine company was going to fill with toxic waste. That was their plan. They were just going to fill it with toxic waste. But the earth shook. And I mean, there's hasn't been an earthquake up there in, I don't know, really, really long time. But it shook along the exact fault line at the exact time that this decision got made. Now, you can call that coincidence, but I won't.
Quake incidents.
I mean, it's like that's the earth. That's the earth speaking. So then I feel like, okay, good. I defended the earth, from moving from, which I think is we're getting off track here a little bit, but it's a good track to get off on. Okay. Which is going from, perpetrator to defender, going from exploiter to defender, right? Mm-hmm. There's a whole thing with the masculine community of how do I, as a man, go from, what's the word? It's not perpetrator. It's like predator.
Predator.
Going from predator to protector, mm-hmm. right? Well, we've been predators of the earth too. So then moving to protector. This idea of hunting discomfort and embracing what is terrifying, for us, and the reason that we numb ourselves, it's also so much tied to the guilt and shame that I did it wrong, I fucked it up, and then she did that because I'm a bad person and I am ugly and whatever it is, right? All of this immense guilt and shame that has been heaped upon us in our culture through religion and our ancestry and our parents' generation and the media and just the intentional ignorance of who we really are and what's really going on. And so then part of that terrifying nature of embracing the terrifying, knowing there's nothing to know is terrifying, because also I don't want to look at my shadow mm-hmm. and the darkness that I have inside that tells me, no matter how I look on the outside, that I am an ugly, terrible human being that is worthy of shame and resentment and death and whatever. I don't want to confront all of this stuff that's around the fact that I never, that I never processed the tragedy that happened, where I stole something and my mother spanked me when I was 5 years old, right? That's the first time for me that I was like, oh, I'm a bad person, I never processed that original initial tragedy. And I just allowed that to kind of spin out in the back of my mind. And so then now I don't want to even think about it, because it's been so many years of me subconsciously, secretly, without anyone knowing, heaping shame and guilt upon myself. Mm-hmm. But there's something about accepting that, there's no getting out of this. That's going to be there, and it's just a matter of healing. And I'm just going to accept that the river is going to roll, and here I am in it. And so I'm going to accept and love myself. And that I think for anybody, I know for me, and it continues to happen, is such a beautiful awakening moment. Like, okay, I got to accept myself. You know what? There's so many lies that I've been telling myself that are not true about who I am and whether or not I am worthy of love.
And until you do, you can look away, but it's not going to change anything. Mm-hmm. That's the point. Like again, back to the terrifying, gratifying. You cannot change the fact that it's prescribed for you to go through challenges. You cannot change the fact that these traumatic events happen to you. Mm-hmm. You can change your attitude and reaction internally in response to them. Mm-hmm. So many of us have trauma that we have incurred between the ages of 4 and 7, which is when the developmental stages of the ego happen. These are ages that even if your dad just screamed at you, you kind of, let's say, just screamed at you. It could be abuse in many different ways, but even that could have changed the trajectory of your life to feel shame, guilt, whatever it is. Now, when you were a 4-year-old, you will respond in a strong way because that's a big human there shouting at you. Mm-hmm. But that is going to just be the beginning of a lifelong cultivation of shame.
Yeah.
And it will grow and fester and grow more and more and more and more. So what we're saying and what this song is talking about is like, what do you prefer? To leave it festering like that? Yeah. It's not going to make you feel better.
No.
Or numb yourself so you don't even look at that.
Yeah.
Or
which is just going to make it worse.
Choose a little bit terrifying moments.
Yeah.
That, okay, let me confront this. And obviously what will come up with is people will think I'm a bad person. People, however, from experience, what as working with myself and working with people around this, what you find out is that when you are willing to stand in the terrifying. So let's say I have some issue, something happened to me in my childhood, and I'm embarrassed and shameful and guilty and a million things. And I think, wow, if my friend Jeff would know that I have an addiction and I have this and this and this, he will hate me and not like me or whatever it is.
Or think you're an idiot.
Think that I'm an idiot. All these lists of things. I rather hide this from him so he doesn't see this, because then he will continue to be my friend. So we have this thing, okay, I'll hide it. But however, whether you do plant medicine or therapy or whatever it is your way, and suddenly this comes up to the surface, and what you'll find out. So suddenly let's say I do the work and I get the courage and I'm going to face him. And in my initial thought is that he's going to scream at me or tell me I'm stupid or don't want to be your friend anymore. But what happens is actually the opposite. I come to him and I say, Jeff, I want to tell you I have addiction to this and this and this. And instead of him telling me out of my sight, 99.9% of the time the experience is, wow, me too. I have maybe not that, I have that. You're feeling shame? Me too, because what that happened to me. So you're realizing that standing in your weakness actually gives permission for closeness and more intimacy.
Yes.
Instead of all the other stories that we were taught, right, from our parents and from different situations, that you just don't show who you are.
Yeah.
That will not be accepted. You need to be this plastic, perfect version. And what I do hope, and I pray for that.
Lawn and, perfect outfits and everything.
And a specific job and a specific husband and specific, all that needs to look.
Salary. You got
salary, yeah. So you have so many hurdles that you need to kind of run through that each failure in each one of them just makes you less happy about yourself. And how do you deal with that? Numbing. See, it's coming back to this whole cycle. So
whereas the risk of vulnerability is so profoundly liberating. If I choose to be vulnerable and embrace the terrifying and just be vulnerable, even if I put myself in a situation where I know, okay, I'm around certain people, a therapist or like really tight friends or, people from your spiritual community or whatever it is, where that I can be that vulnerable, to express that, to take that risk. It's so much more profoundly liberating as you're actually letting go of so much of that shame and trauma and allowing it to heal.
Especially in our intimate relationships or romantic close relationships, instead of, often we think, okay, there's like this dating shows or whatever that you show what you think that they will be attracted to. But then you recreate the Mona situation from before. Yeah. Instead of coming to the table and say, this is who I am and I have these kind of issues. And if the person walks away, they just did you a great service.
Yeah.
Because it's like, I rather have a partner that sees all my smallnesses and fears and neediness and my kinks and what, like, this is what it is. And then let them choose. Because if I'm coming as a completely different human being, there's no other way other than creating what? Dysfunction and pain and suffering that then will explode. And you said that you are, but you said that you are, and you're not at all what I thought that you are, and you're not at all what I thought. Because without blaming, looking at myself, why didn't I say my truth? Why? So coming back to lunacy, living life hidden is really saying that I'm in the moon, where that's lunar experience, right? So lunacy, and I'm only running to hide. I'm only going to be in the darker part of the moon that never has the sun. Yeah. Don't ever see me. I'm going to show you only the parts that in my lunacy kind of way, I think you would like. Right. Not really who I am. Right? Remember, how is that line in the song that says the meek and the invaders?
Knowing there's nothing to know is a gratifying thing. The lovers, the haters, the meek, the invaders, all will sing.
Okay, so meek and invaders, I want to look at that also in relation to the minds. So we gratify, so it's interesting, the word meek is humble, right? But in a I would say in a negative way.
Yeah.
So the meek, like in the small, like that, and the invaders, they have the energy, they fight, and like they'll take what they want, right? So
Meek can also be just generally humble, like the meek shall inherit the earth kind of a thing. But
Right.
yeah.
but this concept of both of these polarities prevent us from saying that's exactly, meek shall inherit the earth. So only if you're devout Christian, making it up, but kind of devout, I have nothing, I should not be grateful for, I should only nothing. That is you from before, not willing to appreciate your own song. Because that kind of meek I call fake humility.
Right.
Oh, I'm nothing. And then what is the opposite for that? Invaders, which could be Genghis Khan invading a country, but I'm talking about
or Rise Gold invading our neighborhood.
For example, exactly. Or it could be the parts in me that are not allowing me to be soft and stand in my invading, the sense of like, no, I have a front, I have a goal to achieve, I have a battle to win, but I'm also hurting and needy and scared and terrified. So kind of leveling the field between the invader and the meek, and I'm able to acknowledge lovers, haters, able to acknowledge that I have all of them inside of me.
Yeah, that's right.
I am a lover as much as I can. Maybe I'm a hater in some ways. Maybe there's certain things that I hate. Maybe there's certain people that I'm like really driving me crazy. It is all in me.
Yep.
Right? So if I just show myself as a lover and there's no hate in this heart, is that really true?
Right.
I might say I'm aspiring to that, but it's not true.
Yeah.
Right? We can be such a loving person. I've seen this clip on YouTube. It's so beautiful. So there's a woman doing like a new age clip about I don't remember what it was, but about positive thinking and all like rainbows and light. But she has like a how is it called? A camera on the dashboard, dash cam. And so she's driving while she's filming this, and it's all like, focus on the light, focus on the good, focus on the light. And then someone cuts her on the road, and she goes ballistic. You're freaking, and it's just the combination of it. And she stops it, obviously, but
it was live.
It was live.
Oh, that's great.
So people actually
look at that.
So it's so beautiful. It's like, who is
I am that woman.
Who is she? Is she the first one or the second one?
I'm the second one.
Is she the lovers? Is she the haters?
That's something I admittedly, like you mentioned, now it's coming up again. Like my hatery, I played too much pole position as a child and Spy Hunter. I'm familiar with those games. And so like when I'm on the road, it's
pole
like
for sure.
Totally, if you're in another vehicle, you're my enemy. And fuck you. I'm sorry. But it's like, and I'm working on it. Like my buddy the other day was like, dude, you gotta work on the road rage, bro. That's not you, okay? You're putting something out into the world that is not you.
He's part of you.
Right, but it is also part of me, and it's also like,
and you are
I
also
have compassion for these other human beings that are inside of the metal boxes.
Right, and with it, you are a person who took so much effort to make sure that the mines doesn't happen. For a lot of people, you worked very hard for a lot of people. So again, also hating and loving. Don't hate the parts of you that have road rage.
That's right.
Acknowledge them, see them, and like, okay, what's underneath? Like, that's not normal. That's new. I don't want out of my road rage to kill someone.
Right.
And also the lovers is like, okay, and acknowledge yourself. Look what I've done. And if you haven't seen the video clip of the Wells, how is it called?
Wells Run Dry.
Yeah. Amazing. Like really. So you can see there, you don't think that person has road rage. That person has a heart that cares about the environment. Are not these two people you?
Right.
They are.
They definitely are. And by the way, it's interesting, on that note. By the way, Kai has not seen the All Will Sing video yet. Yeah. It's not edited. So you out there in internet land, if you're watching this on YouTube, watched it. And good for you.
But he didn't get to see it. Will definitely see it.
The future him will love it because it's great. But about the mind thing, there's also, I love Ben Mossman. He's the CEO of Rise Gold, and I love that guy because it's good to have enemies. You know what I mean? And by the way, like, he's just trying to make a living, you know? But I also love him because he is my enemy, or that company is my enemy. And it gave me a rallying point, something to fight for, and a way of specifically actually fighting for the planet in a way that was affecting me personally.
People together.
And it brought people together, and I wrote a beautiful song about it, and I made a music video, and all these people came and volunteered to be in the music video. There's like a whole flash mob of all volunteers. Nobody got paid for that. You know, like, it was a really beautiful thing. Well, without Ben Mossman and this whole Rise Gold thing, none of that would have happened for me. And it wouldn't have deepened my roots into the Grass Valley Rough and Ready area in which I live. Like, I'm grateful to having an enemy like that. Like, I don't hate him, even though I fight against him, and I'll fight to the death. I mean, that was the whole part of the thing for me about the no matter what. I was like, over my dead body do you open this mine. That was my stand. It is my stand. Because there's one final step.
Maybe let's soften the terminology.
Okay. But it was like that. It was like, you know, it was like that for me. And so,
But
like, I wouldn't
this-
fight him, like attack him or anything like that. But I would
I
fight
just
with
wanted to
my
make sure.
maybe
he shouldn't be driving next year.
yeah, with my, you know, with my words and my music. That's how I
Yes,
fight.
kill him softly.
Yeah.
But the
Don't kill him at all.
The point is
Transform
exactly,
him.
you see how you're saying, it's like what I said earlier about someone getting a heart attack. Sometimes, and that's how life is, sometimes we have an extreme experience that leads to growth and rebirth.
Yeah.
This Ben person, he was the catalyst for a lot of growth.
A lot of growth.
Consciously, probably not. Unconsciously, probably yes. But also, that's again where we are asked to be curious about life. In what sense? We don't know his situation.
Yeah.
Maybe he has a really sick mom, and I'm inventing a whole
Well,
story,
or
right?
maybe he just wants to make money. I mean, I think that's the
But
the
perhaps
thing.
he is somewhat a decent human being in the sense of, like, I need this money. My
Yeah.
mom has cancer. Like, I have to. That's
Oh,
all
yeah,
I
I
know.
see
I
what
have to
you're
make mines.
Uh-huh.
It's like, what I'm saying is, we never know. We
Yeah.
really never know the whole story.
Uh-huh.
And blessing to you, Ben, wherever you are. I
Yeah.
hope your mom is great and everything is amazing.
Go Canada.
Thank you for choosing not to do this mine, or being chosen to not to do the mine.
Yeah. Thanks for losing.
Thanks for listening. But that brings us back to ourselves. That whenever we have judgment, whenever we have the lack of the ability to bring a curious and compassionate mind to a situation,
Mm-hmm.
we're going to suffer from it.
Yeah, absolutely.
In looking at ourselves without compassionate eyes, we're going to suffer from it. Looking at ourselves with hateful eyes, we're going to suffer it from it.
Totally.
Choosing not to acknowledge what's already there.
We're going to suffer big time. You know, at the extremes, it's like this whole numbing of things. And just as you were earlier, you were talking about how, like, we numb ourselves, and that's just turning the volume down on life. So we just experience this small spectrum of life, which is just frankly really fucking boring. I mean, if you've been there, and I've been there, like, I'm saying this from experience, like watching, binging Netflix shows instead of going out and auditioning for things. You know what I mean? Like, I've had periods in my life. Not now, but I have had periods in my life where I did that, right? I used entertainment as a means of numbing myself, and probably also some substances. You know, I've been down that road.
Probably.
And it's really boring. No, I'll admit it. And so there's something about, like, just seeking out the discomfort, recognizing that suffering will happen, that these calamities will happening. You know, the phrase, the light in the darkness, the cold in the hotness, refers to, do you know what that refers to?
Not sure, no.
Okay. This is something my first Zen teacher used to talk about, Father Ren, in relation to oneness and experiencing oneness. If you take a cold bucket of water and you stick your hand in it, it feels hot. And if you take a hot bucket of water and you stick in your hand in it before the burn actually happens, it will feel cold for a second, and then it'll feel hot. The cold and the hotness, the light and the darkness, cold and the hotness. So that's like the whole idea. That's also where you see, I mean, the fact that it feels cold and it's really hot, you know, that sort of, there's something that tells you something there about reality, that at these very extremes, the opposite exists, and you see it and literally actually feel it. And so part of a lot of the call of the song for me, the reason that I wrote it for me, because I always write songs for myself first, is like, hey, just experience the extremities of life, like really live fully.
Yeah. Yeah. It's interesting. There's something I see in the cold and the hotness is also, again, about a point we spoke a lot about in this call about the terrifying
podcast. It's not
podcast.
a call. We're not call. We're here live. I can touch you. You know what I mean?
The fact that there is the terror of exposing ourselves fully, right?
Yeah.
So in order for you to feel the warmth of the connection that will come later, there is the coldness or the contraction that will come with facing this terror.
Right.
It is a necessary step. Like, I will contract and be afraid of it, but that contraction, if I'm willing to step into it and willing to allow it to be, will actually open and warm up, and I will thaw my colded heart, right?
Yeah.
So again, it's the polarities. I love this song. It really, really touches me in that sense, and also I love the music of it. But the words are profound in the sense of it's an invitation to show up to ourselves in a more profound way, and not to be so afraid of who we are.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for saying that. I really appreciate it.
Thank you for calling me into this podcast.
Yeah. It's exactly.
It's
I see that. Good job. Good callback to the calling. I like what you did there.
You've called me.
Yeah, it's interesting. I feel like, I speak about this pretty often, but when I write a song, it's like I am writing the song, but it's also that the song is being written. Like, it's very much I'm just getting out of the way. Like, what am I really experiencing here, and how do I express that? Or how does it get expressed? How do I allow it to be expressed? And then things show up, the words show up, the chorus shows up, the parts of the song. It's almost like...
Sounds so magical to me.
It really is. It's really like, people talk about channeling, which I still think that's a little weird, although I like the idea. Certainly people talk about, Maria Stark and I had this beautiful conversation about the muse, which that's an ancient old, tradition and idea of allowing the muse, the creative force, to come through you as an artist, to really express itself through my voice, through my singing, through my throat, and also through my words. How do I allow her to really communicate what it is that she has to say? And in this instance, it's such a loving, encompassing, inclusive message, that while I celebrate myself for having written it, I celebrate the song. I really love it. I love the way that it came out. I recognize all the pieces and people that came to play to make it happen, especially Brad Gordon. There's also, like, I'm just so grateful to myself that I allowed myself to be open enough to have it come through, because I think, like, as an artist, and this is just for all artists, because I believe all people are artists out there, it's like we have the tendency, it's like, well, I want to write the hit song that's really going to make people look at me and go, there's Jeff up there, and like, or whatever, right? I want to own it. I'm going to write it. And then, of course, we try to force it, and nothing comes out because there's nothing there, because the ego doesn't have anything to say except for, I want that, Like,
that should be a song.
Yeah. Give me everything right now.
I'm telling you.
That's my next hit, people. It's called Fuck It.
Fucking give it to me.
Yeah, there's something about that, like, just being willing. And I think that also goes back to the spirit of the song. It's like, if I'm willing to stand in the river and be open to what's happening, and without judgment, with acceptance and love, then look at the magical miracles that will happen to me in my life,
Absolutely.
Yeah. And it just also makes me so grateful to to be able to convey this message to people, and myself, because it's like I hear it every time I hear it, I'm like, okay, there's a reason that chorus gets repeated 3 times, because I could just keep going down that rabbit hole. It's a never-ending journey right there. So yeah, where do we want to leave people?
Happy and full and inspired.
Yeah.
In a place of choosing to accept their wholeness and fullness.
Yeah, that's great. That's great. And release their shame and let go of their guilt and like just accept, man. We're all fucking really fucked up.
I can say for myself that was a big awakening for me. This realization that yes, I'm contracted, afraid of sharing my truth, shame, guilt, whatever. And as I practiced that, I was literally, let's say 1 in 5 people or 1 in 10 people will be like, oh, I can't believe you have this horrible thing.
Mm-hmm.
The other 9, the answer was, wow, thank you so much. I have this thing.
Mm-hmm.
Or you just gave me permission to feel more close to you because I can share my truth.
Yeah.
And you don't believe it in the beginning because you really, really think that everyone's just going to shoot me when I say what it is that I think is so horrible.
Mm-hmm.
Another thing that happened a lot is that I have this thing that I'm hiding and I think it's so big. And then I came up and I say this to my partner or whatever, and their response is, I know. Wow. Yeah. No, so what? And I'm like, what? And you still love me? I'm like, yeah, I know. It's like from day one. Because that's the thing. A lot of the times what we think is such a monster, for the other person is either completely not a monster. Maybe they have it also. And they're like, yeah, it's a part of the challenge that we're facing. But again, the weight, you said it liberating is so liberating.
Yeah.
And I'm like, wow. Why did I carry this on my back for so long?
What was I doing? Yeah. Why didn't I just express that years ago? Yeah, I know. Going back to addiction a little bit and telling one on myself, I was a cigarette smoker for, I don't know, man, 30 years more. No, it was about 30 years off and on, but mostly on. And the incredible guilt and shame that is associated with that, especially moving forward over time. It's like, come on, you're a smoker in 2018? Dude, we found out that it caused cancer in like 1970, okay? And you're still doing it, and it smells terrible, and it doesn't fit. You're a singer, dickhead. Like, what do you're ruining your voice. So much shame and guilt, and it's like this animal of addiction that just gets, but at the same time, it's numbing something inside of me. It's satisfying a need.
And it's the also, shame of a feeling like I can't, I want to, I can't.
Yes.
Like, why can't I? Like that's I say no to a chocolate croissant. Why can't I say no to this? Like,
yeah, what? and it's because it's coming after me. It wasn't really until like I just surrendered to to my this is an addiction and there's nothing I can do about it, and you know what, and that I also loved myself despite the fact that I felt all this guilt and shame. I kept making this quote unquote mistake, or this quote unquote my one of my best friends used to call it a bad choice. She'd be like, hey, you want to come over and have a bad choice?
That's a good
love you Molly. But anyway, it took me to go into the place of being vulnerable and accepting myself and having to love myself anyway, even though I just felt this tremendous, such guilt, such shame, I'm an idiot, this doesn't fit with who you are, and then also this other side of me that's like, no, I'm a rebel and I'll do what I want. I go smoke things and like that whole animal, it wasn't until I was just like, okay, you just have to embrace all of you, I also read The Easy Way to Stop Smoking, which was very helpful, which gets into that whole thing and helps you kind of unpack that animal for a smoker. And I did ayahuasca, and that was like I had a high intention of wanting to quit smoking, and then the effect of that, which I've talked about a lot on this podcast, was that every time I wanted a cigarette, I saw the whole process of going and buying the cigarettes and smoking it and feeling like shit. And eventually I was like, okay, this I don't need anymore. I'm choosing to love myself enough that I don't make that choice.
And the funny thing is, again, like we just mentioned plant medicine, you just said ayahuasca. what do these things do? What those sacraments will do? They're not going to take it away from you, but show you the whole process and teach you how to love yourself. So it all ties down to that, whatever practice it is for you, meditation, therapy, plant medicine, whatever it is. The point is that at the end, the journey out or the door out is not by hating it, but really accepting the wholeness, the terrifying, the gratifying, the light, the dark. This is what the song is about.
Absolutely. Yeah, exactly. And by the way, I mean, I always say this side note, you know, don't do ayahuasca unless you're really called to it, something that you really want to do. And you don't need that plant medicine in order to see yourself. It is definitely useful for some of us. But really just accepting yourself, even in meditation and prayer, just talking to somebody, you know, like so many times you pointed out in this conversation, like just find a friend, look at your partner, tell them, hey, I gotta tell you this thing about it that I don't want to tell you, and I'm going to tell you, and here it is. And then if that person is not accepting of you because of that, or doesn't want to help you, then that's not the person for you to be with.
Exactly.
And that's...
Find a different person.
I mean, that can be challenging too. For sure, that's going to be challenging. But you know that that's not your person. And now you know the person that you're looking for. So,
I mean, relationship. Yeah, I thought even to speak. Yeah. Maybe your partner, like my wife, maybe I need someone else to talk about something else. Like sometimes you need another friend or something else.
And that's for sure true. That's also true. Yeah. It doesn't always have to be your wife or your spouse or your husband or your mate. I like, for me, men's circles are incredibly valuable. Friends, male friends, female friends, which I have both. You know, confessing things to them can be so beneficial.
Liberating. That's where actually confession in many traditions we have this practice of confession. It wasn't so you'll go to the priest and tell you, I did this, and okay, say Ave Marias and you're fine. It was a process of clarifying your heart.
Yeah.
Let me unburden, because it's heavy to carry all these rocks on our back.
Right. That's right. That's exactly right. Yeah. So confess. Make amends. Confess!
Admit it.
You did it! Okay, beautiful. Great. Well, I just want to say thank you so much for having this conversation with me. I really
you feel unburdened.
I am unburdened. Yeah, I've got to confess to you. But I really feel like it's an honor to go deep on the meaning of these words, you know, that I'm only partially responsible for, with somebody who really looks at life from a deeper perspective. Whoa.
Exactly. I take that deeply.
Yeah.
Appreciate your words.
From a deeper perspective.
I appreciate it, and I appreciate that you want to. You know, that your song means to you so much more. And I can say, from someone who got to hear you sing live in many different situations, I always will say this: I can feel how your music is really Music is really an expression of your soul and your heart. So I always feel that when you're bringing your songs out, you're exposing yourself, you're confessing, you're telling a story, you know.
Yeah.
And
thank you.
So it's, for me, not just the words, but the whole experience is that for you, it is your form of standing in your weakness. It is your form of saying your truth. It is your form of sharing. So thank you for doing this. And keep going.
All right.
While appreciating yourself.
Yeah. And you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, brother.
Yeah, some bromance here.
Awkward bromance. Awkward bromance. All right, everybody. Lunacy is a creation of myself, Jeff Ado. Much love, everybody. See you next time.
Take care.